I have seen it happen over and over again with the families that I work with, where when you look at the child's three jobs to learn, to play, to connect, I have seen children be able to do maybe two out of three of those jobs before they get a phone. And once they get a phone, they can do none of those jobs anymore. So they go from being challenging but functioning to not functioning in any environment in their lives. And I wish I could say I've only seen that once or twice, but I see it predictably for kids that are already struggling at doing their kid jobs. And then we introduce a phone and then they can't do any of their kid jobs. And so because I've seen that so much, I think that some of our kids just should not have a phone. And there are things that we can do to provide protective factors for phones. But the thing is, our kids will often work around that, or they will get, they'll just figure out ways around those things. So if a child needs a phone because you need them to have a phone, and there are situations like that, we always figured something else out, and other people always had phones if you needed to call us after class or something like that. But sometimes you might need for your child to have a phone. In those situations, I would say you get them a phone that is kind of a call or text only phone, monitored like a kid phone, either something like a Gab. Gabs look like kid phones. Pinwheels look like iPhones. So if you want your child to be less embarrassed, maybe you have dropped them off at a football game and you need to be able to get a hold of them. And so you give them this phone, and this phone is really only for events like that. Does that make sense? It's not their phone to just have at school all day. It's not their phone to take in their room at night. It's not really their phone. It's just like, this is for me to be able to get a hold of you as a parenting tool, as a connection tool, not for you to just use. So in those situations, I do think sometimes you need that, right? It's your tool. It's not your child's device. And that might be a little bit of a compromise with your 15-year-old if there are times when you're like, "Ah, really would be easier if he had some way of contacting us, or if we had some way of contacting him in these specific situations, then I think having a phone for things like that might work." And here's what's so hard about phones, y'all. If a kiddo is already struggling at doing their kid jobs, the phone is going to be much more interesting, much more appealing, and provide a lot more rewards to the nervous system than anything else they can experience. And our kids struggle maintaining motivation for normal things that people should not have to be so motivated to do. For instance, a shower, get up and go to school, brush their teeth, just normal things that humans should not have a ton of. They shouldn't have to be extra motivated to do these normal little life things. Our kids often require extra motivation for those little life things because they have low dopamine. And we know that trauma reduces dopamine even more. So they have lower dopamine. Dopamine is kind of our motivating reward system. And we experience it when we eat sugar. We experience it when we watch something exciting, something we like on TV, when we think about watching our next episode. We experience it the most, though, when we are using interactive technology. So what does that look like? 7-second reels, scrolling, liking, having your posts liked by somebody else. All of that is interactive technology. And that creates the most powerful dopamine hits that we know of. But technology creates these strong dopamine hits. And so when you provide a kiddo with low dopamine who's already on the struggle bus in every area of their life, when you provide them with a dopamine machine, then everything else that you want them to learn, do, be motivated for, reduces in priority until it just doesn't even matter. And so that's where I see kids that, again, they go from struggling to juvie. And I'm not exaggerating. This is really heavy on my heart because I've seen this so much. They go from struggling to residential. They go from struggling to the psych hospital. They go from struggling to all of a sudden, I'm not safe at home anymore. They go from struggling to running away with unsafe people. And all of these things I've seen happen over and over again when a person gets a phone that is not very, very, very closely monitored by parents. And even sometimes when it is closely monitored by parents, I've had parents that are a slave to their teenagers' phones, and their teenagers are still getting away with murder. And their parents are like, I don't know how, like, I'm literally monitoring this thing all the time. And then I realized that she was talking in code to so and so, and they were doing this and they were doing that. And I don't know how this got past me because I'm like a hawk on this, but kids figure things out.